Our industry has so many layers and so many positions. We always talk about, just even in the manufacture of product, how many hands touch that product before it actually gets received into a warehouse. Both sides of the fence. And certainly design is part of the infrastructure and, our ecosystem. But I would tell you the percentage of those that are making a living in design is quite small.
Welcome to Clothing Culture, a fashion industry podcast at the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm Emily Lane.
And I'm Bret Schnitker. We speak with experts and disruptors who are moving the industry forward and discuss solutions to real industry challenges.
Clothing Culture is produced by Stars Design Group, a global design and production house with more than 30 years of experience. Welcome back to another episode of Clothing Culture. Today, we are going to debunk common myths. These are conversations that we have nearly on a daily basis with clients. So we thought, let's go ahead and get these myths out there, provide people with a resource to say what is and is not true in our industry.
Unicorns aren't real. Bigfoot is real. There are aliens at Area 51.
Okay, that's a lot of myths.
I'm trying to debunk all the myths that are out there.
Well, there are unicorn successes in our industry.
I think you're stretching it.
Okay, well, why don't we get to the real meat of it and talk about myths in the fashion industry.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, the first myth is one that actually might be one that we propagated a few years ago because there's been significant change in the space of sustainability in fashion. A few years ago, it was expensive, unapproachable, unobtainable, and that is a thought that many people have in this space, that they really can't make sustainable solutions.
Yeah, I would say myth might have been a heavy word. This is a journey. So sustainability as technology, approaches and focuses on the challenge of sustainability. We have movement. And years ago, it was less than 8% of everything available in the entire industry from a fabric perspective was sustainable, and that's not a lot. But there's a lot of exciting technologies. We're constantly looking for them.
Yes.
One of our friends and colleagues, Andrea Ferris, and the team
At Ciclo
have made an amazing technological advance with polys and nylons, making them biodegradable, dropping away microparticulates. And because of the way that their technology is introduced into the supply chain and the manufacturing processes, there's no real change. It's heavily scalable, and that can radically change at an affordable level,
Right.
the trajectory of sustainable product in our industry.
Yes. And, a colleague that we've met on our podcast, Stuart Trevor, he's doing something different in the realm of sustainability, which is upcycling. His goal is not to produce any new garments. It is to take what exists out there and put his mark on them.
And even that's kind of a journey. His thought is it's the change in thought process for upcycling. Upcycling in the past was, hey, it's an Etsy deal. Somebody upcycles, throws a little stuff on it. It's small production. It doesn't really change, the issues we have overall. But Stuart started on this journey where he's really like, look, I don't want to make another piece of garment that exists, period, and I want to upcycle existing garments. But he's doing it at a much larger scale, still not mass scale, but a larger scale than really kind of smaller boutique.
One of a kind, yeah.
And it's being received really well. I mean, Stuart is a master at marketing. He's an incredible designer. He's got a history behind him with All Saints, and I think that's helping. The community is helping drive that in the UK. Recent conversations with Stuart on this whole kind of journey of upcycling is that you can also upcycle waste fabric or fabric that is what we call dead stock. And so it might require making more garments, but then you're rescuing dead stock fabric from sitting in warehouses and ending up in landfills. And so if you focus on both upcycling garments that are in warehouses that aren't moving and making them more, giving them a new life with new fashion twists, and you're manufacturing from dead stock material. The combination of both helps leverage more volume, and it impacts the whole upcycling world of sustainability, I think, in a greater way.
In a more significant way, absolutely.
Yeah, people are getting creative with all of these different things. And I think sustainability, the objectives with sustainability in our industry are going to come from a lot of these different projects. And all combined, there's going to be kind of a, gradual but significant shift towards sustainability. Sustainability is also reflective of the society at large. So, our country, unfortunately, some of the administration doesn't believe that we need to worry about that. I think common logic is that we do. But other countries are really focusing on it because they see it in real time. We talk about India and 1.5 billion people. If they don't start thinking if they didn't stop or start thinking sustainably, they're going to impact in real world food and energy and clean air. And so human beings generally do it when they're kind of put into a corner and they really see the implications. And so I think it's going to move at different rates for different countries, but there is movement, and they're finding ways to do it with technology affordably. So I'm thinking that it is more myth.
Promising.
It's less myth now than it was a few years ago.
That's great. I love the creativity that is resulting out of this desire for brands to embrace more sustainable methods, and it'll be wonderful to see this story unfold in the years to come. Another myth, this is actually a two-part myth that goes hand in hand. And again, this is something that we deal with all the time. Brands will come to us, they'll say, hey, we really don't want to do any overseas manufacturing because it's less quality. We want to stay in the United States because we know the quality's better.
I think
two myths in one statement.
It is. Yeah, I think that's sort of inexperience talking. People in the industry understand that while America and Americans can make great product, we've shown that time and time again through, more technologically based products. We've kind of abdicated apparel.
Yes.
That industry, the industry we're talking about, less than 0.9% of all apparel made is made in the U.S. We abdicated it years ago.
Decades ago.
Yeah. And while there are areas that are still manufacturing domestically, the labor cost is very, very expensive. Therefore, there's always a constant focus on how do I increase sewing time? How do I decrease needle? More simpler garments are more effectively done in the U.S. There's a focus on, of course, all the required garments that are made in the U.S. called Berry compliant for military and things that are required in the USA. And then, you go kind of high fashion, low volume, because moderate and better can be very, very expensive in the U.S. And it's, when you really look at the need for profitability, the need to be competitive and show value, there's not a ton of value for U.S. made, more complex goods. And other countries, as we abdicated that decades ago, have focused on it, and their technology, their sewing experience, because they're doing it day in and day out, has gotten better and better and better. They're implementing robotics and machinery, so things are becoming
efficient.
Not only more efficient, but less flaws in production. There's better attention to the execution. It's interesting because as robotics and technology continue to replace manpower in lines overseas, there is this opportunity to bring it back home again, because you'll have these massive rooms that won't have lights and they'll just be dark, like's happening in China with more advanced, appliances and cars and things like that. there's no reason why that wouldn't happen in apparel, where basically robots are sewing everything.
Yeah.
And so that's the big leveler. But today, that's not the case.
Yeah, it still takes time to get that infrastructure in place if there's a desire to bring
Yeah.
that back.
Yeah.
So another myth that's still in this space of overseas manufacturing, there's this misunderstanding that all overseas manufacturing is manned by prison laborers, or it's all sweatshops.
Yeah.
We've heard that
or
a
underage
lot.
children.
Yes,
That's,
right.
Look, that was a reality many, many years ago. There was a lot of that happening. And it happened more in some countries than other countries. It wasn't a massive percentage because you still had large labor forces in the apparel sector that were of age, that were regular workers that needed to make a paycheck. In a lot of countries, this is a big industry for them. But there were these things that would pop up, right? You know, North Korean prison labor making outerwear and crossing the border into China, underage labor, people that would work on consignment basically and not have income until the factory got paid. All of those things have happened. Less of it's happening today. There are a lot of organizations that one of which we interviewed, RAP,
Yes.
which was an amazing conversation, the president of RAP. And, you know, because of these organizations and because of the requirements of the clients who are receiving the manufacturing, wanting to raise the standards for workers in our industry,
For ethical manufacturing, employee rights.
employee rights, yeah, all those things. Much, much less of is happening, and there are really key, easy red flags to call out when you see them happening to indicate that, hey, there might be some issues in production. But generally, the medium to larger factories that are doing a lot of consistent production have really kind of focused in on making sure that they get their certifications, they're producing ethically and doing that well. And I think that's going to continue.
Okay, this is a myth that comes from newer, younger brands. A lot of people believe that they're too small to afford the luxury of support, whether it be guidance along the way, design support, technical design support, even QC/QA in manufacturing. They just believe they're too small to be able to do it right.
Yeah. I think that's a challenge for a lot of those individuals because, one, they're bootstrapping. You know, they don't have many of them aren't well funded. And if those organizations are popping up in US and to some degree Europe, there's not a ton of resource for that expertise to help them along the way. We've made an effort to build our consulting side, and I think we've been quite busy helping those organizations, and we try to keep it super affordable and succinct so they get the information they need distilled in the way that they need it. And there are other experts that we've talked about in our podcast. There are experts that surround us every day that I think are doing a really good job of supporting these kind of startups. We are living in a world where there's a lot of people, interestingly, finding a niche. We see it, my God, a lot. Every day or every other day, we're getting calls from different organizations with great new ideas and are ready to jump into this crazy business called apparel. And I think that with that increase, it creates an opportunity for consulting to grow and more opportunities for people to learn, get the help they need, and hopefully make less mistakes.
It's also a good opportunity for communities to come together to provide that support system and education and all the resources that are needed to support a growing business. We see a lot of good efforts happening in that space where people are kind of banding resources together and being more collaborative, which I think has a lot of strength. Along these lines of developing a new business, Another myth is that if you build it, they will come. A lot of times people have the great idea, they have great product, but they don't necessarily understand the go-to-market strategy or the marketing that's necessary in order to really have a successful launch.
That's the most dangerous myth, I think, that I've seen along our path, where these individuals will come in our door, they have a certain amount of dollars in capital that they're willing to invest into a program. Some have far less capital than they really need. They feel like their product is really, really great. And many times it is. I think we're pretty straightforward with clients about if we think that that product has viability or not. And they think that, oh my God, all I got to do is get the product in and we're ready to go. I think our tone and our conversation has been amped up more and more lately, emphasizing the fact that, look, this is only the tip of the iceberg. You can have the product correct, but we have seen those situations with clients that have a great idea with a startup, run out of money. They put all their money in the inventory. They don't have any money to properly market the product, get the right website. There's a lot of noise out there today.
Yes.
There's a lot of good ideas. There's a lot of larger organizations that have vast budgets to drive that awareness.
Hundreds of thousands a day.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
And consumers are trained to look at that first. And if you have to go down 23 pages to find this brilliant new idea on the website, or today if AI isn't pointing out the great new idea in SGO as opposed to SEO, that business just languishes and sits there because no one knows it exists. And so for sure, there has to be a proper budget to understand that apparel is your lifeblood. It's your inventory that makes the business. But if you don't have an equal emphasis on marketing efforts, the correct website, the right SEO and SGO today, if you don't have the dollars and you're not out there pushing that product, and you must understand it's a 3 positioning year focus, and it can take up to 5 years for some of the people that we've mentored that are now, I would say, seeing some nice success.
Yes.
It's been up to 7 years, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So
even for the most ambitious, right?
yeah, if you build it, they will come. That is generally not the case.
Right. Just like with any business, it requires good planning and a budget. And we have some really excellent episodes in our first season that really focus on this for somebody who's got that new idea and they're interested in entering into this business. That can be a good resource. So definitely take a look at season 1 if you're one of these.
Way back in season 1?
Way back.
Oh my
yes,
God. How old was I in season 1?
You were just a kid.
20s, 30s, something like that.
That's right. Okay, this other myth is really centered around the idea of, people who are thinking about getting into this industry, the role they're going to have. Many people think, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to be a fashion designer, I'm going to be my own brand, and that's going to be that. That's really not the reality, is it, Bret?
Yeah, they shouldn't get into the industry. That's the reality. No. Our industry has so many layers and so many positions. We always talk about, just even in the manufacture of product, how many hands touch that product before it actually gets received into a warehouse. Both sides of the fence. And certainly design is part of the infrastructure and, our ecosystem. But I would tell you the percentage of those that are making a living in design is quite small.
Right. Let alone for their own brand.
Yeah.
Right.
The reality is that there are a ton of planners and merchandisers and QC and QA and logistics.
And marketers.
Yeah, marketers and, salespeople and
law. There's even fashion law.
There is. There are so many different positions in this industry, and I, for one, have been through a number of those positions. And they all bring with it a sense of knowledge and awareness, so that when you take portions of that and you move to a different position, you're, I think, better informed. So I always urge to go through the path, pay your dues. Might not be, the ultimate design position to begin with, but if you like the industry, start where there's an opportunity, do that job well, do it better than well, and make sure that you're also shining your light on other skill sets that you have when you've got the opportunity.
Yeah, I think exploration is key. There's like you said, there's so many different fields you can explore, be open to that. And internships are a great way to get into the environment and get a chance to see lots of different roles and consider other avenues within this space.
For sure.
Okay, so this next myth is one that I think we can be quite
So
sensitive
many
about.
myths
I
in this
know
industry.
thank goodness we're creating this episode. I know. So this next one is one I think we're relatively sensitive about, and it's something that we've talked about with a colleague, Sharon Grobard, which we've had on the podcast, wonderful trend forecaster. We've talked about the fact that so many people think fashion is superficial. I remember, of course, when we went to the Capitol to meet with lawmakers about the importance of this industry, the number one comment was, "Oh, I don't know about fashion. I mean, I'm just a simple person. I buy my clothes at Walmart."
We had to switch it to apparel manufacturing to make it relevant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. So let's talk about that a little bit, Bret.
I think pre the snake, Adam and Eve felt like fashion was superficial. I
Right.
think, post the apple since then, from fig leaf forward, it's been a statement, right? For those of you who believe in that story. But I would tell you that throughout mankind, the clothes we wear represent to the rest of our community a little bit about us. We make decisions on what we put on. And throughout the ages, there was very significant intentionality behind what you wear. And I think today, designers around the world who are successful properly crystallize the vision, the desire, I want to be part of that club, community aspect of their clients well. And with that distillation, I think comes success. But there's always a message of some sort, right? Even as simple as, years back with Lacoste and the Croc, right? You were the tennis guy. You lived a better life. Ralph Lauren and the horse. Nobody played
Polo.
Yeah. Come on. I mean, maybe there were actually people that wore those shirts that played polo. But there were so many that just said, hey, if I wear it, I've got this air that I am the country club guy, and I'm not driving around in my junky old Toyota, and there was a sense that you wanted to be part of this better life.
Sure.
And I think that whether it's that or whether it's you're looking at Alexander McQueen that has a raw edge that focuses on strife and pain in beauty. There's that distillation. You can go from designer to designer. You can understand kind of their vision, the good ones at least, and that DNA has never been superficial. I mean, sometimes it's well fought with blood, sweat, and tears. You know? And so, and I think that throughout history, decisions on specific apparel have made massive ramifications for the wearer. So
Right. Well, I think a key point is that it's clothing, right? We all wear clothes. Most of us, anyway, wear clothes every day, and that's
at least the customers we want to focus on.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And the global apparel market is a significant contributor to the global economy. It's estimated this year it's going to be a $1.84 trillion, almost $2 trillion industry, and it employs roughly 430 million people worldwide, which is 11 to 12% of the global workforce. This is not superficial.
No,
this is impactful.
Yep.
Okay, so the last myth I have is one that I would say is probably propagated by some of our movies like The Devil Wears Prada, that people in the industry... Does
The Devil Wear Prada? That I think it's a myth.
Maybe. Who knows?
I can think of a lot of different brands that he should wear other than Prada. But...
Well, I'm referring to the film in this case.
Oh, the film.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And so the myth is that people in the industry are, they're rude, they're, short-tempered. It's again, an industry full of ego.
That's absolutely true.
Hey, now. Maybe in some, it can exist, right? Just with all industries, there's a wide range of
Yeah,
personalities.
look, we're human beings.
Yes.
You're going to have the wide range, like you said. I think as I've been in the industry over 30 years and I've traveled all around the world, I have met people that I could really care whether I meet them again. They've been difficult personalities. But the vast majority of people that I have met have been dynamic, interesting, creative, inspiring, willing to help, overcoming challenge. You know, our industry is really, really difficult.
It is. It's high pressured, it's tight deadlines, it's tight margins.
And we're manufacturing in countries that, you know, this isn't all automated, at least at the current time. It's working with economies in many cases or industries that are kind of seeing the very first part of industrialization. You know, when I was in Ethiopia, that was kind of that first step toward industrialization so they could move on and do appliances and technologies. And so, you know, we constantly search out those workforces because it needs to remain affordable. Apparel has not seen the increases in cost at a retail level like other industries surrounding it for years. Like anything today.
Right.
I mean, holy smoke. And so, you know, it's fraught with challenge. So it requires really, really good thinkers. It requires strategists. It requires people, in many cases, that are fearless. You know, very little of the production is done in the U.S. today. And in conversations we had, which are myths, they're like, oh my God, you go to that country. Are you okay? You know, that sounds
right. Oh, that's
scary.
So true. Yes.
And so it requires someone that's open enough to understand that perhaps in traveling, it's more exciting and eye-opening that it is dangerous. You know, there are countries that certainly are more dangerous than others.
We've had teams overseas contact us and say, "Oh my gosh, are you safe? Are you okay? In the United States, it's so dangerous there."
Yeah, yeah, with all the gun,
yes.
you know, with all the gun things that are going on in the U.S. And so it's all a matter of perspective, right? I think that the world is fascinating. I think that most people in the, I don't know, over 60 countries that I've traveled to, I can tell you, probably with the exception of one or two, I've always found fascination, great people, great work ethic, you know, for me, enhanced understanding of the world. It's been a fantastic journey traveling the world. But I would tell you that there are people that, you know, don't share that. And they think, oh my God, it's a mean world out there. And I don't see that really.
So before we wrap this, are there any other myths that you're aware of that you think deserve a little debunking today?
Good question. I think we've covered most of them, thinking through, you know, all of the things. I think, you know, every day we come up with misconceptions. I'm not really sure that they're myths, but there are misconceptions about manufacturing and misconceptions about lead times and, you know, things like that, you know.
Misconceptions about the fact that, I want to produce smaller quantities and pay less and get it faster, for example.
Yeah, there are things that people need to be educated on with respect to the technical sides of this business. But, you know, I think you've covered a lot of the big, quote, myths that are.
That's great. Well, as with everything, a little education goes a long way. It really helps.
And if you guys have other things that you think are myths or questions out there, please send them in and we're happy to dialogue about them. Yeah.
That's right. Well, thank you for joining me in this conversation today, Bret. Thank you for joining us today. Do not forget to subscribe to stay apprised of upcoming episodes, and we will see you soon.